Stellar Blade feels like the developers work in a steamy kitchen, cooking away, watching Gordon Ramsay tutorials on how to make the perfect meal for your amazing date tonight to be. Cutting the meat into beautiful dices, sauteing the onions to a wonderful crisp, and even making a wonderful salad on the side for a round meal. But before Sir Ramsay could tell them to add that sauce, the Wi-Fi died. And the team was left to their own accord as to how to finish this masterpiece of a meal. So they just had a ketchup to round it all out. No sauce, just ketchup. Stellar Blade is a wonderful game, a truly excellent effort by a first-time console developer, and yet sort of misses the mark for me. The studio Shift Up certainly focused on push-ups, as one of the key marketing points was the protagonist Eve, who unfortunately is as hot as a very convincing blob doll. See, yes, she is hot. That much is obvious. And yes, they gave her some very revealing outfits that are objectively sexy. And yet, her dullness makes it so none of that translates to a truly attractive character. I mean, everyone goes on and on about how typical this and how typical that is of Eve 5 minutes into meeting her. But having finished the game 3 times now, popping that platinum and seeing just about everything the game has to offer, I can't really tell you what is typical Eve. Now, a couple days ago, the director behind the game revealed that the story was definitely not a priority for the game. And I think that is absolutely fine. If you don't write so much of it, there are definitely games where the story isn't all that, but it is so far in the background that it doesn't really matter too much, as the game systems speak for themselves. But the team behind Stellar Blade, for some reason, insisting on letting the characters speak instead. And you can't really skip everything either. Like when you want to skip regular dialogue, for example, you have to go line by line. But it also makes you listen to just about the whole sentence before you can skip said line, rendering the skipping thing useless. Even skipping cutscenes is so incredibly random because they just won't let you skip a bunch of them because they're just so important, I guess. Like, I get it on my first playthrough, alright? I don't really skip anything on that playthrough anyway. Second? Hell, the third? Just let me leave. You get lines like, you don't look very likable. Or Lily complaining, which is a theme, I guess, that this droid won't shut up. Not that she just asked her a question. I just don't know what was going on in the writer's room. See, the story of Nier Stellar Blade is that androids are supposed to be the next evolution of mankind, who were pushed off of planet Earth by these monsters that just appeared out of nowhere. And now the androids, who believe to be humans since they are descendants of them, I guess, are sworn to destroy the Natibas to reclaim Earth and, I don't know, live there? But it could be that simple, could it? No, because androids can't just have to kill these monsters because they want to go back home. Simple story for a simple gameplay focused game, right? No, but you see, the game is inspired by Nier Automata, so it cannot be simple. You understand? It has to have plot twists, and those plot twists are just so fucking dumb. Like, they make no sense whatsoever. No, because you don't understand, the Nativas are actually the humans. Driven by fear that the androids are gonna overtake them, overpower them, they began to experiment on themselves, leading to them becoming these fuckfaces. And androids are just that. Androids. No real correlation to humans, besides fighting them before fleeing away. And this was hidden to them by their masters for some reason, who lied and told them they were sort of human? Instead of just telling them, yeah, we got beef with those fucks over there, with those humans, you know? Why bring in this lie in the first place? Why muddle the waters? For some reason, the characters finding this out is also like life-shattering to them. Especially with, literally from the beginning, every single message you find, you know, turning around the fucking chair, oh my god. Let me read that. They lied. They're all lying to you. You know, typical video game stuff, right? Only it's not like typical video game stuff, right? You can't go 2 feet without being like, oh, they lied. Oh, actually, everyone's a fraud. Oh, don't you understand? They lied. 9S's stubbornness, acting as a vehicle for slow gamers to catch up, is nothing compared to these dead-ass fucks screaming at Eve and the gang just shaking them that, oh no, mommy sphere is up to no good. You don't understand. And that's not even foreshadowing anymore. That shit's for lighting. I'm proud of that one. And the ass backwardness of the plot doesn't really end there either. Because we got more twists, baby. Such as Adam. Yes, it's Adam and Eve. Well, he's the alpha Natiba.
Adam, what do you think?
I don't know. Don't ask me.
To our beta girl. Like, twists are supposed to have build-up and seem logical on a replay, but this one, he's more like a titty twister. Comes out of nowhere. See, our alpha man over here wants to do a Dragon Ball fusion with Eve and turn her into Mercy. Yeah, it's as weird as it sounds. So peace can be achieved, and this sort of made sense to me. I said, sure, let's do it. Turned into this. Fought Lily because she couldn't handle her mech. Saved her ass, got out of there. Saw Android Jesus, who said, yeah, wow, and now you die. And this moment where you fight off all of these androids is supposed to be like this profound, tragic moment. You know, having to fight off your own kind. Obviously, much like Nier Automata's third playthrough. But the only difference being that, yeah, you feel nothing. It's empty. It's empty calories because neither Eve nor the androids seem to care much about the killing that's going on. You just spam some moves and have no health bar at this point, and eventually it fades to black. Like, oh my god, it's an endless battle with only one victor, Eve. Wow, we saved the town. Everyone is happy. Yay. Freeze frame and all that. So my first playthrough was the good ending, I guess. Second playthrough, I tell Adam to shove his reasonable plan that only makes sense within how stupid this all is up his ass, explaining how I have to make my own choices. Which really makes no sense because killing him is like what she was sent here to do in the first place. Like, your whole mission was to kill him. Now you're doing it and you're like, I will make my own choice. Anyway, he becomes a biblically accurate angel. So you whoop his ass in a pretty well designed boss fight, I have to add. The last hour of the game is kind of a boss rush, which is kind of nice. But anyway, after the boss fight, Android Jesus appears once more. This time, happy about what you did. Finally, now that you liberated Earth, you can go home. We just cleared Earth, guys. Why don't you just come down here and just kind of hang out, you know, like we were supposed to? Earth's free, guys. There's no one here. Like, we can chill. And while that's that ending, the third ending is the same as the first, but whoopsie-doo. I didn't do a mission that makes Lily's hacking skills super good, so the mech kills her in this one, and the rest is just about Android Jesus, fight my people, cut to black, no happy times at the ugly city. Now, finally then, let's get to the official focus of the game. The gameplay, which I have to admit is quite the joy. While there are no predator or gotcha elements in game, some of those mobile sensitivities are still here in the form of how pickups feel with an escalating sound effect as you pick up each item, practically giving backshots to your neuron system. Only thing that's missing is jiggle physics activating it with every pickup, you know, like her bounce. I mean, generally the exploration in the game is extremely satisfying, as there are rewards just about everywhere and all of them feel worthwhile. Because if it's not a new outfit, you see, and there's resource that you will need to upgrade your character. And if it's not that, then, well, of course, her energy. That one's actually in there. I think it's the only sponsor they got. The rest is cute little drinks that she just kind of like presents to the camera. There's lots of chests that involve little mini games too, just to open them, such as a little Dance Dance Revolution routine or a Helldivers-esque nuclear code to submit before getting your prestigious latex to craft your next outfit. I do have to say though, booting up the game at times did shock me in a similar way as randomly scrolling the web only to see porn on the timeline. Like, not to slut shame Eve, but damn girl, it's just a little shocking when you don't expect it, right? I just sort of tended to wear the latest thing I got so I could experience the variety of clothes. I noticed that there's variety in not only the style of clothes, as there are of course a couple reskins with different color palettes or like accessories added, like a jacket or something, and there is a lot of variety in that, and I do think some of them really look very pretty and cute. But there are also 3 body sizes, which I have to say is very funny to me. It's like a Guna version of picking out your own Barbie doll. Like, I want the thick Eve, who cuts it especially close during scenes like this. The combat is divided into Manchester and Texas modes, and to allow you to actually use your long-range weapon, the game forces it upon you. As basically, as soon as you get the Skyrim gun mod, you're pushed into an area where your sword doesn't work. This is done to get the fear of using resources out of you by getting the fear of jump scares into you. The game does have a surprisingly decent amount of them, not too many as to turn it into a problem, but enough to keep you on your toes. The sections where you only rely on your guns are a very clever idea, as they really add a new dimension to the combat loop, and hopefully they teach you to mix and match the guns outside of these zones as well. Although it didn't quite work for me because, well, guns felt more natural inside of these zones, mainly because you actually get to fight enemies with weaknesses to guns within these places, while the regular enemies outside eat bullets like candy. The second survival horror-esque segment turns the whole experience on its head, as you should by now have upgraded your gun so far as to become the horror yourself, and with that you just kind of casually mow down anything that steps in front of you. Overall, I do have to say that the Soulslike comparisons feel very surface level, because yes, there are of course camps, and yes, there are flasks, but you don't lose souls upon death, nor is the level design very FromSoft inspired in its nature. The only clear attempt at this is a very silly moment at the beginning of a level where your robot buddy tells you to open that door because you never know what's ahead, and 5 seconds later, not even joking, there is another door that basically leads to the same place, making it sort of feel like an attempt at Dark Souls level design. It is complete nonsense, and as this is like a linear section with the next camp being like 10 enemies away. I'm assuming the devs assumed you die to this thing maybe, who is an introduction to a new enemy, and they did want you to save those 5 seconds running around the gate right there. So let's talk about the enemies. Once again, unfortunately, ketchup, no sauce. While it is really a very easy trick. Having the enemies be cute and scream / cry, the Automata managed to make the things you are slicing into interesting to both look at and murder. Soulslike has combat that is much more interesting than the Automatas, but the monster design just feels very samey, with the most interesting designs appearing late in the game, which can also be said about the environments, which have the same problem of kind of being samey in parts, up until later points in the story where you actually get to see some new things. As a very weird choice was made with the open world sections, because both of them are deserts for some reason. And while I'm not going to say that I don't like sand because it's coarse, rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere, I would say I would have definitely found some variety much appreciated, as the hub city is such a cool idea and concept, like a junkyard turned into a neon glittering post-apocalyptic city. Could be cool, but it just really feels like a junkyard, but with strange character designs like the bald hairdresser or the flirting with information girl, who I just could not figure out what they were going for. Like, okay, she may be gay for Eve, fair enough, but Eve is so extremely hostile to her from the beginning that maybe it's like that male thing where straight guys pretend to be gay to their homies, who they would definitely only ever hypothetically kiss goodnight on the cheeks. One of the segments from the linear first mission can actually be turned into a little horizontal open-ish area through an optional side quest, and I find that to be brilliant, as there was no sand. And I wish there were more clever ideas like this. Although I do have to say, the open world maps in general, which are completely optional, you do not have to spend a minute in the open world maps, they do offer some really decent surprises, and some lots of side quests that feel much more fleshed out than most of the main missions, with some nice time-based challenges, some puzzles that are completely non-existent in the Golden Path, and additional boss battles that are mainly rehashes of story bosses, but still a welcome surprise, especially with the Kratos-esque killing animations for these bosses that are absolutely a joy to watch. The animations in this game are consistently stunning to look at, with plenty of different animations for all sorts of combos and actions, which affects gameplay in the sense that you can cancel your gracious 180 spin mid animations sometimes. I found the animation canceling weirdly inconsistent, while in something like the Dark Souls series, you tie the knot to any attack you start and you can not get out of it until it runs its course. Other games like God of War let you cancel just about any attack by rolling a 600-pound Godzilla out of the way. And while I don't expect every game to let me animation cancel like COD, I do wish the rules of when it works and when it doesn't were much clearer than it is right, because clearly the combat is very animation and it's a choice that works for the game. But getting my ass clapped because the game decided I pressed deflect at the wrong part of the animation doesn't seem completely right to me. What also doesn't seem quite right to me is the classic L3 R3 God mode, which kind of feels extremely weak. Yes, you become invincible for a time, which is a good upside, and you get a cool soundtrack and get some flashy moves, but I felt like it took longer to kill enemies in this state than in my regular state, which shouldn't be right. But this may just be because your regular state is really strong, because throughout the game you would gain both beta and burst attacks, and beta attacks in particular felt extremely overpowered, and with the right build you could kind of just continuously spam them, which I may or may not have exploited at times. I had 3 playthroughs, guys. And these attacks are, again, differentiating the game from the Souls-like roots by making the combat not only a lot easier, but also flashier, which I do believe is a good choice here. I do think a lot of enemies are far too tanky for what they were going for, combat-wise, as it feels like random guns alone weren't designed to kill you, which they won't anyway, but they have enough health to really drain some time and resources out of you. That is if you don't just shank them when using your beta energy. That's a Manchester combat I'm talking about. Funnily enough, the most interesting area on the Golden Path is technically also locked behind doing a bunch of side quests first, as you have to fill up this bar that I did not notice I was filling up for Lily, so she likes you enough to bring you back home with her. And her homeland is actually my favorite level in the game, as no other part of the game lets you skate on a roller coaster. In the main quest you just get to like skate through lame-ass Elon Musk car tunnels. The next area after that, which is sort of the beginning of the last level, actually starts out very cool too, and it does introduce my favorite monster types, like these cyborg monsters as well, which I found to be the most interesting looking monsters to fight. But the level quite frequently pushes you into bland looking interior locations that just don't hit the same as some of these outside sections. I mean, look at this blue ass water, in which you can fish, by the way. Because every game needs fishing, unfortunately. The fishing minigame in Stellblade is not bad, although I did not really see the point, which is, funnily enough, the point. It is seen as a trivial task that serves no purpose for the androids, as they do not need to do this. They don't need to consume fish. But rather, it is a continuation of a human tradition for the sake of keeping alive. See, the game can have some fun, interesting ideas. But again, most of it is found in optional content, which is such a bizarre choice to make. Bizarre choices were also made in the music department, which, from what I understand, is a bit of a controversial take, as a lot of the music was made by one of the composer's teams from the Automata soundtrack. And it's not exactly like shy with its inspirations here either. A lot of the songs do feel similar in nature to the Nier soundtrack, and yet weirdly enough, they're just not nearly as saucy. I continue to listen to the Nier soundtrack outside of the game while writing that video and editing, and I do see myself coming back to it every once in a while when I need some background tunes, but I generally don't think I'll ever listen to any song from Stellar Blade outside of the game ever again, besides editing this video, I guess. Partly because every map has its one song that just kind of plays on repeat with no real different modes for like combat and puzzles and whatever the fuck else you do. Not just that one song over and over again. And honestly, when you do everything in the area, you can get quite tired of those single 3 minutes just looping over and over again. And there's also this really strange choice where you can change the song only when you are at the camp, which usually lasts for like 10 seconds while she flips her coin and inserts it, I guess. I just don't see why this couldn't translate to the whole map. Why can't I just pick the soundtrack for the map? I just don't understand. The most interesting news, however, of the music came in a later boss fight against Ray, whose story is also... But during her fight, you don't get to listen to generic epic orchestras. Instead, you get this poppy tune, which feels sort of left field and surprising. I couldn't help but be delighted. An actual surprise in the game's golden path. Beautiful. I do really wish the game took more such chances to be unique and make things their own. I understand trying to play it somewhat safe on your first outing. And what a brilliant outing it was, I have to say. Because despite all of my talk about saucelessness, I like me some ketchup. And I do think a sequel to Stellar Blade could definitely be amazing if they play more to their strengths and don't feel afraid to add some edge to their smooth baby of the game. Stellar Blade could really be near perfect. I hope I don't have to continue making these puns as my titles. I don't know why I started.